Hello, everyone. I'm Keith DeStone with the Center for Hellenic Studies, and I'm here with Greg Nagy and Sarah and Jenna and Elen for office hours for v16 of HeroesX. And we're talking about today, just hour 22, the discussion that's happening there on the discussion board in response to your question, Greg, which is as follows. In the Apology of Socrates by Plato, Socrates indirectly compares himself to many heroes. Which comparison do you think fits him best? What are folks saying about that one?
Well, there's a mention of Achilles, of course. Achilles, in his consideration of avenging Patroclus, Achilles was ready to do the right thing, even if it will cause his own death. So he chose justice. In that way, he compares him to Plato.
And the thing about Plato is that I think he understands the Iliad so well that he kind of fuses, not confuses, fuses two passages in the Iliad, one in Iliad 9, and then another one much later after Patroclus is dead, where Achilles is blaming himself for letting the death of Patroclus happen. And in that context, Achilles finally says, I know that if I go after Hector and kill him, I will die too, but I accept that. And I will accept that as my kleos. And I will seek that as my kleos. So killing Hector will mean that I will have to die too. And in the way Plato retells these two takes of Achilles about kleos, one before the death of Patroclus and one after the death of Patroclus, it's very clear that this way, it's a question of dying for a cause that is just, even if it's sad or it causes a great deal of sadness, grief to Achilles. And I really think that that's a good way to read the Iliad, but this way we have the cause of decay, justice, come to the foreground, and it's always in the background in the Iliad. You don't really see any moral choices in terms of right or wrong in the Iliad, but Plato can do that, and I think that helps explain why he wants to keep having dialogues with heroes in the afterlife, if the afterlife is possible. That is to say, he leaves open the possibility that after death, there'll be no more consciousness and it'll be like a good sleep. But if there is consciousness after death, he wants to continue his dialogues, his Platonic dialogues. Now, why am I saying Socrates wants to continue Platonic dialogues? It's because Plato is, after all, channeling Socrates. So I think Achilles is the best choice. That doesn't mean that he doesn't want to interview Odysseus as well. Let me say that without double negative. That doesn't mean that he rules out conversations with Odysseus as well as with Achilles. But there are problems with Odysseus in the sense that Odysseus is blamed by Plato Socrates for the death of Ajax. And of course, Socrates also wants to have a dialogue with Ajax. He wants to have dialogues with every hero of Homeric poetry.
Yes, he's comparing, or he wants to have dialogues with the A-list of heroes, perhaps. In H24H, you say he's quoting and paraphrasing Iliad when he's comparing himself to Achilles. What's the significance of paraphrasing and quoting?
Well, it means, I think, dear Janet, that he wants to continue reliving the Iliad with Achilles and rethinking, not just reliving. Maybe I should have said it the other way, reliving, not just rethinking.
So someone else has picked up on a non-Homeric example, which is Palamedes, who died unjustly. I think Palamedes is mentioned in passing in the epic cycle, but we don't hear about it. Am I right in thinking that in some way our friend Odysseus was also implicated somewhere along the line there?
Definitely. Not only is Odysseus implicated, but there is a tradition that we know from outside our Homeric texts where the father of Palamedes, who blames the Achaeans in general and Odysseus in particular for the death of his son, and goes around the Achaean world and makes trouble for the families of the Achaeans who are fighting in Troy. And in the case of Odysseus's mother, Palamedes's father, whose name is Nauplios, and he is the namesake for the port city of Nauplio, as we call it today. So he goes to the mother of Odysseus and tells the mother of Odysseus that Odysseus has died. And that's why Odysseus's mother dies of a broken heart. So the only reference to Palamedes in all of our Iliad and Odyssey, because otherwise he's censored from our Homeric poems, is where there's a reference to the death of Odysseus's mother of a broken heart. And that's it, but no names, no name of Nauplios, who said this lie to Odysseus's mother, and certainly no mention of Palamedes anywhere in the Iliad and Odyssey. Odysseus has to be the only trickster in our Iliad, in our Odyssey. There's just no room for two. As the saying goes in old American Western films, this town isn't big enough for the two of us.
So Palamedes was also a trickster character?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so, and yet he died in an unjust way.
Yes.
And in the text we have in the Apology, Plato, Socrates, says that he would like to make contact with him, and he says it in the same breath as Ajax, as if these are two people he sees himself going to die unjustly, but sticking to his guns. So it's almost as if he's whitewashing him.
Yes, and you see that in both cases, the complicity has to do with Odysseus. Odysseus is the cause of both deaths. But that said, there is some modeling of Socrates on Odysseus, and my favorite example is where imagine him going all over the world, searching for somebody who is more sophos, let's say wise, than he is. Well, of course, what's funny is that Socrates stays put in Athens. So it's a journey of a soul, not a physical journey the way Odysseus did it, but that's an Odyssean theme of finding your nous, may I put it that way, by traveling all over the world, whether you chose to or not. In the case of Odysseus, it's just because he keeps veering off course. But you see, what I'm saying is that Odysseus himself is on a journey of a soul, and so is Socrates. So that's the one area where Socrates does model himself on Odysseus. But in other ways, it's definitely Achilles and Ajax, and foregrounding decay, even for Achilles.
Well, friends, we'll be back next week in the same place, just as Socrates stayed in the same place, but had more dialogues, for more of Socrates in hour 23.
Or
So,
at least more of Plato's Socrates.
fair enough. All right, until next time.
Till the next time.